Okay, look what I've got here. A Nelson Large Print Thin Line Reference Bible in the Premier Collection. This is really exciting. I was able to get one of these in a trade, and it's really exciting to have this Bible. I'm adding to quite a few other reviews of this, so I'm not sure what this review will add other than just another some other video shots and another perspective on this. But let me get into this Bible. You can see on other reviews how it's packaged, and I already took it out of the paper packaging, but let's take a look at the Bible itself. And just in case you want to look at that, there that is. So, this Bible, as many have said, is really beautiful, and it's for a premium quality Bible, it's really quite affordable. You can get them right now on Amazon. They'll do special deals, and you can get them for as low as $70, which is incredible for a really good quality Bible. On the other hand, you may have to pay upwards of $100 or more for this, depending on where you get it and what the sales are. But again, I'm just going to show some things other people show too, but maybe you haven't seen this. This is the binding of the Bible, and this is all just stamped on there. But it has a really smooth feel to it. It has this perimeter stitching. It has a thickness to it that's kind of cushiony, is the way I would describe it. Then the liner on the inside. I don't know really for sure what the liner is made of, but as you can see here, the cover is goat skin. Excuse me, I know I'm sniffing a lot. I think I'm just getting over a cold, as well as maybe dealing with some allergies too, so I apologize for any sniffing. And there's our title page, and another page here. Copyright page. Table of contents. A short preface, which I noticed there's a short preface in the Thinline New King James Youth Edition that I have. The other Nelsons, I think, that are not Thinline maybe have a longer preface to the New King James. The Old Testament title page, and then we get into the text. Some things to notice about this text. One is that it's paragraph format. It's a comfort print that I believe is supposed to be around 11 point, but the comfort print, in my opinion, is a little smaller than it is advertised to be, but as many have said, it's bold, it's clear, and I think it's really pretty. You can take a look at that for yourself and see what you think. I think it's really pretty. So this shows you a prose section and what the paragraph format looks like. Another thing to note is the verse numbers actually on the camera are showing up pretty nicely, but they're not as bold as you would get in, say, a Schuyler Quintel, but they're nice. The headings are in red as well as the chapter numbers, so that looks really nice. The paper quality is quite nice. It's what I like about these Nelsons, I've noticed, is that the paper doesn't have a lot of show-through, even though they're thin lines. And I think there's other thin lines that you really get a lot more show-through. So I have to say Nelson has done a good job with that. This is a premium collection Bible, so of course the paper is going to be nice. It's a 36 GSM paper. If you don't know what that is, that's 36 grams per square meter, I believe. And the idea is that you have a little bit of more heft to this paper, which helps there not to be so much bleed through, and also it's a very sturdy paper. It's still Bible paper, so it's not as thin. Excuse me, it's not as thick as you would get in a lot of novels and other books, but really good quality paper. Not to the level, again, of a Schuyler or probably a R.L. Allen or Cambridge, but still really good quality paper. I think it feels pretty smooth. But the Schuyler, I don't even know how to describe their paper. Almost like it's just so smooth, and almost getting, just to where it just has this really hefty feel in your hand. This not quite as much, but still good quality paper. Beautiful ribbons. They're actually, I think, single-sided satin, as other people have shown. Can't really see it that well on the camera here, but you get the idea, and they're pretty long. And one of these ribbons is a red ribbon, and there's the red ribbon. And we're in the book of Matthew here. So the New Testament also has a title page. And people have mixed opinions about the font that you see in the titles. It's more of a modern looking font, I guess some would say. But it's in red and really has a nice contrasting look to everything else in the Bible. So I would give it a thumbs up myself. Here's a little bit of poetry, so you can see what that looks like. The lines, or the words per line, is, I think, really good in this Bible. I really like overall the way that the size font works with this size page. Now, I'll get into the dimensions of this. It's a pretty big Bible, but as you can see, the font looks really good there. And the lines in the poetry section, I think, look really good. Getting further along in the Bible here, as we get to the end, we do have a concordance, which is not anything super huge or amazing, but is sufficient and has some nice helps in there for you to look up different words and see where they are in the Bible. And then we've got some maps here in the back, and they're pretty nice. If you look at my review of the Youth Edition Thinline NKJV, very similar, except this adds a few more maps, I think, and we've got Paul's missionary journeys here, which is really nice to have, along with the maps of Israel. And then just kind of some closing pages. Not a lot of extra pages there. Uh, 9 3/4 inches there is what I'm reading, by 6 1/2 inches by 1 1/2 inches. So it is a pretty big Bible. And I'd like to compare it to some other Bibles because I will say that on one hand, it's much more portable than I think, a Bible that's not Thinline. It really will fit into things like your briefcase or a backpack a lot more easily. If you get a case for it, keep it protected, I think you can transport it pretty easily, which is great. However, as far as its size, comparing it to a Thinline from, I got this in 2005, and that size difference is about an inch on the top and on the side, and that makes a big difference when you open it. When you open this Bible here, you can really just hold that easily. But the print is a lot smaller in this one. I think it's only maybe an 8-point font. So there's advantages and disadvantages with each Bible. The size of this Bible does make it more difficult to hold and maybe teach from just holding it, because it does flop out a lot more because of its size. But the font is bigger and clearer. Another thing that's different between these two Bibles is this, as you might have noticed, has a verse-by-verse format, which Nelson is going to be putting out comfort print verse by verse classic format coming out in the fall. That's really exciting because if you're a teacher or preacher, a lot of times it's really nice to have those verses right on the side there. On the other hand, for read through, just reading through the Bible, it's a lot smoother and visually appealing to just have the paragraphs really separated out like that. But you can teach from this. So compared to the old one, I would say this is more portable, but this one is more legible. It is easier to read, and I would say, as far as quality, I feel like Nelson already had some good quality Bibles in the past, and this was, one of their higher quality collections. I forget what it was called, but it was their good quality Bibles about 15 years ago. And so it's good quality, but I think they've upped their game. I think this is even nicer overall. I think that the liner inside will hold up better than the liner that was in this Bible. As you can see, that was a weakness for this particular Bible. However, it's really held up well. And I think one of the things that causes a Bible to hold up is the quality of materials. The other is its dimensions, actually, because, I think these thin lines actually are a little bit less susceptible really to wear and tear because you can just fit them so easily into things and the pages aren't as likely to get messed up. That's my opinion. So having a thin line is a really has a lot of advantages to it in terms of portability and even longevity of the Bible, I would say. By the way, the outside does look really nice gilding on the edges there, gold. It's supposed to be red under gold, and I have to say, I know I don't necessarily see colors as well as other people. I have some level of color blindness, but I don't think that's really what it is. I just think that the red on this is very, very dim. It's not a bright red, or it's not a dark red at all either. It's just hard to see, actually, the red under the gold there. So I would actually say it's maybe looks like it's not there. However, let's compare it to another Bible here. That's with no art gilding. So I think it does have some, but it's very hard to see. So that might just be unique to this particular one that I received. Maybe yours will be a little bit more visible than mine is. It's got this gilt line around, which a lot of nice Bibles do. And so what that does really just adds to the visual look of the Bible. So as I said, compared to the old one, this is not as easy to hold. As you can see, when you put them together, there really is a size difference. It's actually hard to see on camera here, but it really is a size difference because if it's an inch on each side, it ends up being about 2 inches bigger when you open it up. But very legible and still very portable. Let's compare it to the Youth Edition Thinline that I have reviewed, and I'd like to show that quickly here. Again, I love the cover on this. That's great, I think, for the kind of the price point of this Bible and what you're going to be using it for, to have just something unique on the cover, a nice design. But for an elegant Bible like this, that nice just plain goatskin cover is really beautiful. But as you get into them, they're really similar. But I would say that obviously this one here, the Premier, has a larger print, and I think it's a 10 or 11 point in the Premier, whereas the Youth Thinline has a 9-point font. But I think the spacing in the Youth Thinline is they have good spacing between the lines, so that actually makes it very legible considering it's a smaller size. I'm always amazed too on camera. Everything looks pretty readable, but that's because I'm holding it fairly close to the lens, and the lens focuses quite well. But when you're reading these, you can definitely see a difference. If you have any kind of eye problems, the Premier collection is easier to read, or the large print Thinline. You don't have to get this, by the way, in the Premier level. I think they actually have this available in other formats that are less expensive. But again, for $70, if you can get it for that price, it's more than worth it, because it's going to last you a longer time than a cheaper version of this would. So let's compare it to one more, and that would be the ESV large print Thinline. What I am so amazed with the ESV is what a large print they're able to get in a small space. Now, I believe this is actually considered a 10-point font in the ESV. But when you compare these two together, I would have to say the size difference is negligible. They seem like they're pretty much the same size, in my opinion. So again, I think the Comfort Print runs a little bit smaller compared to other fonts. That doesn't mean it's not truly an 11-point if that's what they're advertising, but fonts are different. You've seen that on the computer, where one font looks bigger than another one, and so that's going to be the case with different fonts. One other thing I will note about these particular printings with the Comfort Print, I didn't really notice it until the other day, and I think this would be an example here where they're quoting the Old Testament. And if you're familiar with the New King James Version, you know that quotes in the Old Testament in the New King James traditionally have been put in oblique type. Now, the words that are added in English are in italics, and in other older versions, the Old Testament quotes are in oblique, and oblique is like, it's pretty much the same kind of printing, but it's slanted, whereas italics is a little bit of a different printing. So the Old Testament quotes are not in oblique. In this older one here, I think I can show you where the Old Testament quote is in oblique. So again, it's not italics, it's just they slanted the writing, but it's the same font. So the new one does not have that. It's not, to me, a make or break issue. I think it's kind of nice to have that, because I think that was a feature that NKJV added, and I think that was cool, but you can live without it. It just makes it a little harder to note if they're quoting the Old Testament, but they do put notes there, and you can look at the bottom and find out where the Old Testament reference is. So overall, my impressions are this is absolutely gorgeous. If you like a soft, supple, flexible Bible, then this is the one for you. You can use this for reading through. If you just want to read through the Bible, it's great for that. I think you could teach from this pretty well. Again, with the verse numbers being in paragraph format, not super bold, that might make it a little bit harder, but still it's usable for that. Definitely on the pulpit, on a desk, good for study. And one thing I really liked about this is if I'm sitting down and I want to put this on my lap, it really just sits nicely in the lap. And because the print is a good size, for a lot of people, you can just set that on your lap and read very comfortably. So it's great. Have coffee in your hand, Bible in your lap. That's a wonderful thing to be able to do with this Bible. So again, overall quality of it, very good, especially for the price. And so I'm going to give this really a 9 overall. I'm going to rate it out of 10 points. I would say this is definitely a solid 9 in my opinion. It is just high quality, good, and very usable. I hope that was helpful to you, and thanks so much for watching this review from a Frisch perspective.